You see, when we talk about no contact with someone who has avoidant tendencies, most people think it's all about punishment, silence, or trying to make the other person miss them, but in reality, that's not the secret. The truth is that avoidants don't respond well to pressure, control, or someone desperately trying to close the gap. What they secretly want during no contact isn't what you might expect. It's space, respect, and proof that you can live without them. Here's the paradox: the more you chase, the more they run. The more you try to convince them, the more they shut down. But when you step back with dignity and self-assurance, when you stop begging for validation, something changes. They begin to notice the absence, not as an attack, but as an invitation. Avoidants secretly want to feel safe. They want to believe that reconnecting with you won't mean giving up their independence or their sense of self. And the only way they feel that safety is when you show you're okay on your own. This doesn't mean you play games. It doesn't mean you pretend not to care. It means you actually shift your energy back to yourself. You invest in your life, your passions, your growth. You allow the silence to speak for itself. When you do that, you're not trying to get them back. You're raising your value in their eyes. Suddenly, you're not the person who drains them with neediness. You become the person they're curious about again. So here's the real power of no contact. It's not about manipulation, it's about transformation. You transform from someone clinging to connection into someone who embodies strength, calm, and confidence. And that's exactly what avoids secretly crave, but are too afraid to admit. They want someone strong enough to give them space, yet attractive enough that they don't want to lose you forever. When you can strike that balance, showing love without pressure, showing independence without coldness, you become magnetic. That's when no contact works. Not because you forced it, but because you became the version of yourself they never want to let go of again. When you're dealing with someone who has avoidant tendencies, the biggest mistake you can make is to apply pressure. Pressure can come in many forms: constant texting, demanding answers, pushing for clarity, or even subtle guilt trips to make them feel bad for pulling away. What most people don't realize is that avoidants are hypersensitive to anything that feels like control. The moment they sense they're being trapped, cornered, or expected to perform in the relationship in a way they're not ready for, their instinct is to retreat. It isn't necessarily because they don't care. It's because their nervous system equates closeness with losing freedom. For them, too much closeness too fast feels like suffocation, and when that suffocation builds, they run, not because they want to, but because they feel they have no choice. This is why space is so critical. Space allows an avoidant to breathe, to recalibrate, and to feel safe in the connection again. When you back off and give them the distance they naturally crave, you send an unspoken message. I respect your pace, I respect your independence, and I'm not here to control you. That one message, without a single word, is often more powerful than anything you could text or say. It disarms their defenses. Instead of viewing you as a source of pressure, they can start to experience you as someone who honors their individuality. And ironically, that's what makes them more open to reconnecting. Think about it this way: when you hold onto something too tightly, it slips away. But when you allow it room to exist freely, it often stays. Avoidants want to know that loving you doesn't mean losing themselves. They want to feel like being with you won't cost them their freedom or their emotional safety. Space is the gift that reassures them of that. And it's not just space in a physical sense, it's emotional space too. It's about not needing immediate validation, not demanding explanations for every silence, and not trying to fix them when they retreat. Giving space doesn't mean abandoning the connection or pretending you don't care. It means standing tall in your own life and showing them that you're capable of being whole without clinging. That's the paradox. When you show them you don't need them to function, they begin to feel safe wanting you. The moment they sense that their independence won't be taken away, their heart begins to soften. That safety is what eventually draws them closer. So, Instead of panicking during no contact and trying to break the silence with pressure, see it as an opportunity to embody calmness, patience, and strength. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you're proving to them that you're not a threat to their freedom. And slowly, that fear of being engulfed starts to dissolve. The more safe they feel, the more willing they are to step toward you, this time on their own terms, not because you pushed them, but because they chose to. Chasing is one of those instincts that feels natural in the moment, but backfires completely when dealing with an avoidant. When you feel someone slipping away, your brain goes into survival mode. You start texting more, calling more, asking for reassurance, or finding little ways to remind them that you're still there. It feels like you're fighting for the relationship, but in their eyes, it comes across as overwhelming. To an avoidant, chasing equals pressure, and pressure equals distance. The more they sense you're trying to pull them closer, the more suffocated they feel, and the faster they retreat. It's not always about you personally. It's about the way they're wired. They've learned to equate closeness with losing control, so when they're chased, their instinct is to run just to preserve their own sense of freedom. This is why detachment is so powerful. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring or that you cut yourself off emotionally. It means you release the desperate grip on the outcome. You stop trying to force their attention or demand their energy, and instead, you turn your focus back onto yourself. That shift in energy is magnetic. When you detach, you're saying, I don't need to chase because I know my worth. And ironically, it's this very confidence that stirs their curiosity. They start to wonder why you're not chasing. They begin to notice the silence not as rejection, but as a reflection of your strength. Avoidants often expect people to pursue them, to try harder, to prove their love through effort and insistence. But when you don't follow that script, when you choose calm detachment instead, it breaks the pattern. Suddenly, you're not the person trying to pull them in, you're the person who seems strong enough to let them go. That unexpected strength makes them pause. It flips the dynamic, because now they are the ones thinking about you, not because you demanded it, but because you created space for their curiosity to grow. Detachment works because it creates emotional contrast. When someone is chasing them, avoidants feel trapped. When someone steps back, avoidants feel relief. But when that relief turns into a quiet absence, it shifts into intrigue. They begin to think, why aren't they chasing me? Don't they care anymore? What are they doing without me? And once curiosity enters the equation, they're already re-engaging, even if they don't show it right away. The beauty of detachment is that it doesn't just affect them, it transforms you. Instead of pouring all your energy into someone who's pulling away, you reclaim that energy for yourself. You invest in your own growth, your passions, your goals. You become visibly happier and more grounded. That's when they see the difference. Instead of being drawn to your neediness, they're drawn to your self-sufficiency. Detachment makes you radiant in a way that chasing never could. And that radiance is what turns the tables, allowing them to see you not as someone clinging, but as someone worth moving toward. When you enter no contact, it's easy to think the only focus should be on the other person, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and whether or not they miss you. But the real secret lies in redirecting all of that energy back to yourself. Instead of obsessing over their absence, you invest in your presence. You pour into your own life, your passions, your friendships, and your growth. That shift doesn't just make the silence easier to handle, it changes the way they perceive you. When you use no contact to genuinely elevate yourself, you raise your value in their eyes without ever having to say a word. Think about how attraction works. People aren't drawn to someone who looks lost, desperate, or stuck in limbo. They're drawn to people who are in motion, people who have momentum, people who carry themselves as though their life has meaning regardless of who is or isn't beside them. When you invest in yourself, you start to radiate that energy. You stop waiting for them to validate you, and you begin validating yourself through action. Whether that's taking care of your health, diving into your career, exploring new hobbies, or deepening your social life. Every step you take in this direction adds a layer of value that others can't ignore. Avoidants are often repelled by neediness because it threatens their sense of freedom, but self-investment is the opposite of neediness. It shows independence, resilience, and confidence. It says, I'm not waiting for you to complete me. I'm already complete, and you can either join my journey or watch me from afar. That kind of energy is magnetic because it removes the pressure from them. Instead of feeling like they're responsible for your happiness, they see you thriving without them, and that's when their curiosity starts to turn into admiration. The beauty of focusing on yourself is that it also shifts the power dynamic. When you sit around waiting for them to come back, they're in control of the story. But when you shift the spotlight back onto yourself, you reclaim that control. Suddenly, you're not the person being left behind. You're the person moving forward. And as they watch you build momentum, they start to feel the subtle fear of missing out. They realize you're not stuck in the past. You're creating a future with or without them. More importantly, this self-investment isn't just a tactic to attract them. It transforms you regardless of the outcome. Whether they come back or not, you've grown stronger, more confident, and more fulfilled. You've created a life that excites you, one that doesn't revolve around waiting on someone else's decisions. And in that growth, you naturally become more attractive not just to them, but to anyone who crosses your path. That's the paradox. The moment you stop centering your energy on getting them back and start centering it on building yourself, you become the kind of person they don't want to lose. The moment most people hear about no contact, they assume it's a strategy to manipulate someone into missing them. They think silence is just a trick to spark fear of loss, a game to regain control. But that mindset misses the true power of no contact. It isn't about forcing someone else to feel something. It's about transforming yourself in the process. No contact is an opportunity to shift from desperation to dignity, from fear to strength, from chasing love to embodying it. When you approach it with this perspective, everything changes, not only in how they see you, but in how you see yourself. Manipulation always backfires because it's rooted in insecurity. If your silence is just an act the cracks eventually show, you'll break it with a text, you'll send a subtle message, you'll check up on them in ways that expose the truth, that you weren't really detached, you were just pretending. An avoidant can sense that kind of energy, and it only reinforces their fears. But when no contact is rooted in genuine transformation, there's nothing for them to resist. They don't feel manipulated, they feel intrigued. They see someone who has shifted from needing them to valuing themselves, and that shift is powerful. Transformation is about reclaiming the parts of yourself you may have lost in the relationship. Maybe you stopped pursuing your goals. Maybe you neglected friendships. Maybe you lost touch with the activities that used to light you up. No contact gives you the space to return to those things. It gives you the silence you need to hear your own voice again, to rebuild your sense of identity outside of the connection. That growth isn't just attractive to them, it's healing for you. It's the foundation for a healthier relationship in the future, whether it's with them or someone new. The beauty of this transformation is that it happens quietly. You don't announce it, you don't broadcast it, you simply live it. Over time, the energy you carry begins to shift. You move differently, you speak with more confidence, you radiate calm rather than desperation. That's the kind of change that speaks louder than any message you could send. They may not even know what's different about you at first, but they'll feel it. And what they'll feel is that being around you no longer threatens their freedom. It inspires them. No contact isn't a punishment, it's a reset. It's a chance to let the old dynamic fall away so a new one can emerge. When you stop focusing on controlling their response and start focusing on becoming the strongest, happiest version of yourself, You create the conditions where real attraction can grow again. You stop being the person who was clinging for survival and instead become the person who thrives on their own. That transformation is undeniable, and it's the very thing that makes someone who once pulled away reconsider what it would mean to lose you. When people hear the idea of balancing independence with warmth, they often imagine it as a contradiction. How can you show independence without seeming cold, and how can you be warm without appearing needy? But this balance is exactly what makes you magnetic during no contact, especially with someone who has avoidant tendencies. Independence shows that you're capable of standing on your own 2 feet. It communicates strength, self-sufficiency, and the ability to thrive whether or not they're by your side. Warmth, on the other hand, demonstrates that your strength doesn't come at the cost of love, kindness, or emotional availability. It shows that while you don't need them, you still choose to value connection. Put together, these qualities create the rare energy that avoidants secretly crave. Someone who honors their freedom but still makes them feel wanted. Independence without warmth can come across as indifference. If you only focus on proving that you don't need them, you risk creating a wall so high that they stop seeing any space for intimacy. To an avoidant, that can confirm their fear that closeness always means rejection or coldness. Warmth without independence, however, tips the scale the other way. If you're all affection and availability without showing self-sufficiency, it feeds into their fear of being trapped or smothered. They start to see you as someone who depends on them for happiness, and that pressure triggers their instinct to retreat. That's why the combination of both is so powerful. It reassures them while still intriguing them. This balance shows up in subtle ways. Independence might mean you're fully engaged in your own life, investing in your career, nurturing your friendships, taking care of your well-being. Warmth might mean that when you do interact, your energy is kind, open, and compassionate rather than bitter or resentful. It's the difference between saying, "I'm fine without you, so I don't care," and "I'm fine without you, but I still value what we had." That energy removes the sense of pressure while keeping the door open to reconnection. Avoidants often fear that being close to someone means losing themselves. But when you embody both independence and warmth, you show them a new possibility. Closeness doesn't have to come at the cost of freedom. You're modeling a type of relationship dynamic where both partners maintain individuality while still sharing affection. That balance creates safety. It makes them feel like choosing you won't mean giving up who they are. The magnetism here is undeniable. When someone sees you thriving without them but still radiating kindness, it disarms their defenses. They no longer view you as a threat to their independence, and at the same time, they feel the pull of your warmth. It's this rare combination that makes them stop and think, "I don't want to lose that." And that thought plants the seed of genuine desire, not because you chased them, not because you manipulated them, but because you became the person who embodies strength with heart. That's the kind of person people always come back to, no matter how far they wander. And so, if there's one truth to carry with you, it's this: no contact isn't about punishment or games. It's about becoming the version of yourself that's calm, confident, and magnetic, the version that doesn't chase but inspires curiosity, that doesn't beg but commands respect. That balances independence with warmth in a way that makes real connection possible again. Thank you for giving me the chance to share this with you today. And I appreciate your time, energy, and openness. Because your growth doesn't just change the relationship, it changes you.